My sister betrayed me 6 years ago. Now my parents tried to reunite us by inviting her to my bridal shower without my consent. My sister is 26 and I'm 28, after a horrible incident that I will describe in a moment. We haven't spoken for about 6 years. For whatever reason, my parents never discouraged the fierce sibling rivalry that existed between my sister and me. As we grew up, they would really encourage us to compete more. In retrospect, I don't think that was a smart move because it caused us to become really envious of one another. Perhaps our relationship would have been better if they had taken care of it sooner rather than later. When we were younger, we could at least occasionally set aside our differences, but as we became older, our animosity for one another increased when we reached high school. We hardly spoke to one another, and we enjoyed it that way. After that, I left for college and only saw my sister when I got home, which was somewhat preferable than always. Being around someone who was unpleasant, I began dating my fiancé around the time I was to graduate. He finally plucked up the courage to ask me out before I graduated from college, after we had been friends for 3 years. Since I too thought he was great, I said sure, since we had been friends for years and it didn't seem like a huge deal. I moved in with him after graduation. I brought him home for supper one weekend, after we had been dating for 3 months, because I wanted to introduce him to my parents. It just so happened that my sister, who had just begun college, had also made the decision to spend the weekend at home. It was already a formula for disaster, and we were both there at the time. My life was going really well. I had a lovely boyfriend, a career, and my own apartment. My sister, however, wasn't doing as well. She was angry that she had to settle for her second choice of college after failing to get into her first choice. My parents later told me that she was having a hard time making friends at college, which is why she was coming home so frequently. I could tell my sister wasn't pleased when I presented my boyfriend to my parents in the background. She pouted. I introduced them even though my partner was aware of my tense connection with her. She instantly turned on her charm as I introduced her. I tried not to be bothered by it, even though it seemed strange, but then things became more bizarre. My sister was very interested in my boyfriend's life and kept attempting to talk to him when we were all sitting around talking. We were both frightened, but we remained silent. Then she went too far and began openly flirting with him in front of me throughout dinner. She wasn't even subtle about it. She was clearly doing it to annoy me. I didn't want my boyfriend to realize how dysfunctional our family was, so I tried to ignore it for a time. But I was at my breaking point since he was my lover, lost my temper, and urged my sister to stop, since it was repulsive that she was flinging herself at him in that manner. She simply rolled her eyes and continued to speak to him. I snapped and screamed at her, telling her that he was my visitor and that she should show him respect since she was making him feel uncomfortable. She was only assisting my lover in realizing that there were alternatives to me, and I recall her saying that he deserved better. We began cursing at each other because of the manner she stated it, which really irritated me. She wasn't doing as well as I was, so I dubbed her a loser and stated she was resentful. She was deeply affected by that remark. She pulled me over and slapped me after grabbing my hair across the table since we hadn't had a physical altercation. Since middle school, I was initially too surprised to respond. However, it escalated into a full-fledged fight after she struck me. We were so violent that my boyfriend and our parents had to break us apart, even though we were both hurt and scratched. Up by the end, we continued to yell at one another. It was my partner who pulled me away, got me in the car, and drove us home while attempting to reassure me the whole time that conflict might have lasted much longer if he hadn't been beside me, so I was glad to have him by my side because I was pretty worked up. I completely stopped talking to my sister after this episode. Although we had battled previously, it had never been this vicious for me. It was the final straw since I was already living apart from her. I must admit that I no longer felt compelled to think of her as a member of my family. My parents called me the day following the event to inform me that they had reprimanded my sister. They hoped we could work things out. In the end, even if she wasn't prepared to apologize, I informed them that I had no interest in resolving the matter. I didn't want anything to do with her anymore. Therefore, I wanted our relationship to stay awful. They attempted to convince me otherwise, but I reminded them they shared some of the responsibility. They had never recognized our fierce sibling rivalry since we were little and had even fostered it. They therefore couldn't be shocked that we didn't want to be together. We got into a fight because they didn't agree with me. They apologized over the phone a few days later and acknowledged their error. It seemed a little meaningless at the moment, but I forgave them, even though I had already made the decision not to talk to my sister. I didn't want to sever my ties with my parents. It's been 6 years since that happened, and I haven't spoken to my sister since. But as long as they don't pressure me to make amends, I don't mind that my parents and she have a typical relationship. We seldom talk, but I've seen her at family gatherings. We avoid each other even on holidays, and I like it that way. We don't get along, and everyone in the family knows it, but no one understands why. They only know that we got into a fight, and I haven't changed anything because neither of us looked good after it. I kept it a secret from my family for over 6 years, but during my bridal shower, I finally revealed the truth. In addition to my bridesmaids, my maid of honor had only invited close relatives and friends since we weren't adhering to the custom of just inviting women. My fiancé was also present. I wanted everyone I cared about to be there. Nevertheless, my parents chose to invite my estranged sister as well for whatever reason. Sincerely, I have no idea what they were thinking, but I was taken aback when they entered with her. I was surprised to discover that my sister appeared just as surprised to see me. When they walked in, the room became quiet, and there seemed to be a standoff. My parents approached me and spoke to us both after what seemed like a lifetime. They said that a lot had changed in the 6 years following the tragedy. Above all, they expected us to make amends because they thought we were older and more mature. Her face made it obvious that my sister had been duped by her parents to get her there. I informed my parents they had no right to do this on such a significant day for me. Before she could say anything, I gently requested that they go with my sister. My parents wouldn't leave, so I tried to maintain my dignity. So as not to ruin the occasion, they advised me to move on from the past. They gave the impression that nothing important had occurred, as though it would be simple for me to go on, which annoyed me. I reenacted the entire episode to help them remember it, and to make sure everyone else knew exactly what had happened 6 years prior. I then inquired if anyone in the room felt that I could simply let go of this. If I had married someone else, it would have been a different story, but I was marrying the same man with whom my sister had openly flirted when I first brought him home to meet the family. She had shamelessly done it in front of me, treating him as though he were a participant in a tournament that he had never consented to. Above all, she attacked me first, after doing all of that simply because I called her out on her actions and labeled her a loser. I had never had someone attempting to physically harm me in that way before, so it was traumatic for me. Despite everything she acted as if nothing had happened and never apologized to me in the previous 6 years. I didn't feel obligated to forgive her or move on from the past. I never allowed someone like her back into my life because I felt it was more vital to cling to the past. My parents' assumption that they could simply bring her to my bridal shower and expect us to comply was absurd. Fortunately, my sister realized her mistake and left before my parents could dispute much further. My mother followed her, presumably to appease her, as I assumed she wasn't pleased about being misled either. My father stayed with me for a short while, but I informed him that since he had disappointed me, I didn't want to talk to him just now. He became irritated and accused me of being irrational, claiming that I was acting like a brat and that it made no sense to hold on to something that had happened 6 years prior. Although I didn't think I was being a brat, I told him to go since I didn't want to argue with him. He also left after a few minutes after that. I was so overwhelmed that I had to take a few minutes off to gather myself. Fortunately, my fiancé and maid of honor supported me, and after a little while I was back to my usual self. Everyone else cooperated, seeing that I needed a diversion and didn't want to think about my sister or dad, and we resumed the celebration as if nothing had happened. After the encounter, my fiancé and I went home and we didn't discuss the situation further. I was okay with the fact that I had heard from my parents since this incident, which occurred roughly 5 days ago. I felt that we should spend some time apart after what they did. Although I didn't anticipate hearing from them right away, they did. And not to offer an apology, but rather to hold me responsible for my sister's predicament. My mother called me this morning on the phone as soon as I responded. She instructed me to contact my aunt and ensure that she offered my sister the position she had been discussing. I urged my mother to back up since she seemed agitated and panicked, and I didn't know what she was talking about. She went on to explain that my sister had been out of work for roughly 6 months due to layoffs and downsizing at her prior employer. She had to move back in with our parents a few weeks ago after realizing she could no longer afford the rent she had been searching for. A job, but she had not been able to locate one that she liked or that paid enough. My mother had discussed this with my aunt, who was launching a new company, because my sister had been working in marketing before my aunt had first chosen to appoint her as head of marketing. However, my aunt stopped replying and eventually revoked the invitation following the bridal shower episode, in which I told her what had transpired 6 years prior. Since I had always been my aunt's favorite, I didn't find it unexpected, and I believed it to be a plausible explanation. When my mother forwarded the message my aunt had sent her to me, my aunt stated in her reply that it was evident my sister had severe anger management problems based on her understanding of the incident I described. My aunt wasn't pleased that she hadn't even offered an apology, not even during the bridal shower. Furthermore, my aunt stated that she had first chosen to hire my sister because she was related, but that she had interviewed a better competent applicant for the job a few weeks prior. She would now offer the position to the more competent applicant. Since she had changed her mind, that seemed totally reasonable to me, and I was genuinely glad my aunt had a change of heart. I informed my mother that I couldn't do anything about it after reading her message because, as someone who has seen the negative effects of nepotism in the job, I didn't want my aunt to be the type of person who makes things worse. Otherwise, my sister would have been employed because of nepotism. The real reason my sister wasn't hired was that it appeared my aunt had discovered someone more suited for the position since this was my aunt's business life, and I didn't want to cross any lines. I informed her I wouldn't talk to her in an attempt to destroy my sister's reputation and image in front of the family. My mother began to lose her head and began screaming at me. Since I hadn't discussed the issue in years, she suggested I didn't need to bring it up during my bridal shower, even though I had started the argument by calling my sister a loser, especially knowing it would hit her where it hurt. She thought I purposefully painted her as unstable and nasty in order to garner the family's sympathy and make myself appear to be the nice guy for the record. I wasn't hiding anything when I recounted the incident I had stayed, that I had labeled her a loser prior to her attack. Even yet, I don't believe that calling her derogatory names excused her physical altercation. It was just unjust for my mother to say that I brought up the incident in order to harm my sister's reputation. I blocked my parents and hung up after giving it some thought. I'm not sure if discussing the incident with was a wise decision. My mother said over the phone that I hadn't given my sister a chance, despite the fact that she had evolved over the years. That was pretty rude of me. She said I brought up my sister's attack on me 6 years ago, which resulted in her losing a job offer. Am I correct in bringing this up? Update 1. Hi RDIT. Before I discuss the events that followed my initial post, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who took the time to leave a remark. I appreciate your nice words and suggestions very much. Well, let's talk about what transpired after I blocked my parents. My parents were unable to reach me because my sister had been barred for the previous 6 years. They chose to come see me as they had no other method to get in touch with me. I truly don't have time to handle all of this because I'm getting married in a few weeks. I already have a lot on my plate since I had just returned from work, and my fiancé and I needed to travel right away for a last-minute wedding dress fitting. I told them to leave when they arrived. We were going to go, but they had arrived at the wrong time, and I knew that if we opened the door, they would find a way to continue chatting and irritate me. They didn't go even after I threatened to contact the police. To be honest, I didn't want to call the police since I thought it would be obsessive. Being the type of person who phones the police for everything was not something I wanted to be. We agreed to let them in, give them a cursory hearing, and then leave. After speaking with my fiancé, after making up our minds, we invited them inside, opened the door, and ordered them to hurry up because we had other places to be. Fortunately, my folks didn't mince words. They said that my aunt had withdrawn her offer to hire my sister. Due to my actions at my bridal shower, they insisted that I talk to my aunt and make sure my sister found employment, because in theory, I was at fault. I didn't want to repeat myself because it was the same argument. I informed them that I couldn't do anything about it because I had already spoken to my mother about it over the phone. They knew I was busy and I'm getting married in a few weeks, so it seemed senseless to come to my place and discuss it again. My sister then cut me off. They came for other reasons. She claimed, besides the job offer, I was taken aback by that. As it was our first conversation in 6 years, she went on to tell me that it was really because of her that they were there. She felt compelled to apologize to me since I'm still unsure of how I felt at the time. I genuinely don't know what to say to you all, since I plainly don't trust her. I had serious doubts about her intentions. I chose to be direct with her as a result. I questioned if she truly wanted to apologize, or if she was just there to do so because she believed I could help her land the job. I informed her that I couldn't help her. Therefore, there was no use in wasting her breath if it was only about the job. She appeared a little taken aback by my candor, but she was able to explain that she had come to apologize and that our parents were there to discuss the job. It was obvious they hadn't talked about this because even my parents appeared astonished when I looked at them. My sister, though, seemed unconcerned. She said that she was merely there to apologize and had no interest in the position over the previous 6 years. She had given her actions against me a lot of thought, but she had always found a reason not to say sorry. However, she was unable to deny the reality that she had mistreated me. After the bridal shower, my fiancé and I were still having a hard time processing everything, but I could tell she was serious based on her tone and conduct. She informed me that she had been resentful of me since she was a child because she felt like she had to compete with me since nothing mattered. In the real world, she understood that she had wasted her entire youth and adolescence competing with me. She felt bad about it because we could have been friends, especially because I had made multiple attempts to be her buddy. She acknowledged that she had pushed me away because she always thought of me as a rival. I had felt the same way, so hearing her utter all of it was crazy. I'm embarrassed to say that, as she related her story. I began to cry. After that, she spoke to my fiancé and expressed regret for the way she had treated him during their one and only encounter. She acknowledged that the apology was long overdue and that she had been so preoccupied with defeating me that she had failed to recognize the type of person she had become. She didn't wait for our response. Once she was done, she merely stated that we didn't have to pardon her. She only wanted to let it out, and now that she had, she would stop bothering Us, my parents, my fiancé and I were the only people left in the room when she left since none of us had anticipated it. We were all sitting in awe trying to comprehend what had just transpired. My fiancé and I went out for my fitting after my parents eventually left without a word. We didn't talk about any of it until we got home. We only began discussing my sister's remarks approximately 30 minutes ago. Even though it took her 6 years, I felt that her apology was extraordinarily mature. She meant every word based on her actions. My fiancé and I are currently debating whether or not to forgive her, since we haven't even finished processing it. It's too soon to tell. We're tempted to get in touch with her later and express our forgiveness. Need more time before I can reassure her that everything is fine, even though I've already unblocked her. Even though it took her many years to realize we could have been friends. That is something I'm truly happy about. Update 2. Hello, I just realized that in my previous update I neglected to express what I intended to do with relation to my parents, to be honest. I forgot about it because I was so preoccupied with my sister's predict. In any case, my folks haven't gotten in touch with us since our previous visit a few days ago. We're going to keep avoiding them, because I don't think they're sorry for anything. The way my sister and I ended up together is one of the many things I hold my parents responsible for. They still had the opportunity to be better parents, but they blew it. They have consistently made it all but impossible for me to maintain them in my life. Despite my best efforts, we fought and argued a lot over the last 6 years, and I've always tried to forgive them, but I'm at a loss. Now people who obviously don't care about my feelings, or even my sister's if I'm being honest, can't continue to be excused in the end. We won't communicate with them, and I doubt they'll come to my wedding. However, my fiancé and I want to get in touch with them in a few days to inform them that they are no longer invited at the wedding, just to be safe. Update 3. Hello everyone, last week I got married. Everything was lovely and fantastic, exactly as I had envisioned, and I had a great time. My parents were not present, as was to be expected. My spouse and I didn't even have to make contact with them. They informed me via email that there had been a huge mistake and that they would not be attending. They said my sister and I had begun to demonize them, and that they didn't need to be reminded that we blamed them for the tense relationship. They said that despite their best efforts to be excellent parents to us, they now intend to take some time off and live their separate lives without worrying about their daughters, because we don't value their presence in our lives. I mean, if that's what they want, I'm okay with it. Happier news, a few days after I published my most recent update, I contacted my sister's sister. I told her that I would love for her to attend my wedding, and that I accepted her apology. It was a very joyful day, and she kindly accepted my invitation and attended the wedding. It's absurd to think that I would have sneered at my parents a few months ago if they had informed me that my sister would attend my wedding instead of them. But now we are here. In any case, I'm glad everything went without a hitch and that I'm at last getting back on track with my sister. This is sufficient for me for the time being. But perhaps my parents will change their minds and apologize to us. Life has never been better, and my husband and I will soon be departing for our honeymoon. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.